Hello, people of the internet, it's Amanda, and if you think that I've gotten tired of talking about this particular franchise, this particular drama, then you're wrong. I'm gonna be talking about Hana Nochi Hare today, and the reason for that is just so many things. Number one, so in 24-hour terebi last night, in one of Kishi-kun's final performances, Kinpuri surprised him and they all performed Cinderella Girl. So that one in itself is just nostalgic because, I mean, even if I listen to that song on an almost a daily basis on my playlist, like it's still different to see them perform that again, especially with their other performances that they've been constantly doing nowadays with Key of Heart, Maisie Night, and all of those things. So it really goes back to that particular song when you talk about, King and Prince and how they started. Sugisaki Hana, who played Edogawa Otto in Hana Nochi Hare, was promoting her movie with Jdrama, and in one of the programs, so there was this bit where they want to talk about, something that quote unquote someone who's a national idol and at the same time a tenon, which just by that sentence alone you can immediately tell who that is. But they apparently like that person has a message for Hana, and so when they played it off, it was confirmed that obviously it was Hirano Sho. And he talked about this particular instance when they were filming Hana Nochi Hare and Hana was looking particularly sad or down. And so he wanted to surprise her to cheer her up. So he was coming up to her from behind. But as he was about to surprise her, he didn't notice that there was a glass wall separating them. And so he bumped his head into that and eventually led into a nosebleed to the surprise of Hana and more so to his own surprise. So there's definitely that. Now, it's just so nostalgic to see to even have that remote connection between the two of them again. It was such a delight seeing them interact on screen, especially given that, Hana and of course Nakagawa Taishi are very much well seasoned, even if they're just around the same age range. Whereas for Sho, he's done a couple of dramas back in his junior days, but Hana Nochi Hare is definitely that drama where he's really at the forefront, at the headlines, and it's very important. It became very important for his career as an idol as well, because that's in conjunction with, Cinderella Girl, their debut album and all that. So it's definitely one of those things where you just want it to happen. And of course, again, given with the legacy of Hana, Yori, Dango, it's just so interesting to revisit that world over and over again. And given what happens in the manga, now for people who haven't read the manga or anything like that, so this video will have a lot of spoilers about what I want to see in season 2, certain events that I would want to discuss, arcs that I wish they would just slash off if they're going to do a season 2. So there are definitely going to be spoilers, so just be warned. But again, this is just me wanting to talk about some of the things that I feel like are pointing to a season 2, and also just the things that I would want to play off, especially with how things left us when season 1 ended. So there's that. I'm just gonna start off with some of the reasons why I think a season 2 has to happen and why there is a possibility that it might. Now, again, this is just my wishful thinking, being, the trash for this drama and this entire franchise for the longest time. But number one, the drama's ending is just simply asking for it. Now, a lot of people, I feel like, again, if you haven't read the manga, it just wouldn't make sense as to how they ended it. Definitely, with the ending of Hana Yori Dango season 1, you have that bittersweet moment of Domyoji leaving for New York, but at the same time, we got a good conclusion that Makino and Domyoji finally confessed. I mean, more of Makino finally confessing her feelings for Domyoji, and there's definitely that kind of closure there that even if they just left it alone, seems impossible considering the legacy of that trauma. But if for some reason it just stuck to just one season, at least you have a very crisp conclusion as to what happened. Whereas for Hana Nochi Hare, the ending itself, it's understandable why a lot of people were disappointed, at least when it was running at the time. I saw a lot of people, commenting on my video, my recap video for there, and then in other sites as well, that were just simply complaining about how they ended it, mainly because Otto and Kaguragi didn't even see each other. And it was seen that Otto was already on her way to Ibisu Garden Place where they were supposed to meet. They were waiting, and then it was just a massive cliffhanger as to how it ended. It's just impossible not to ask for a season 2. But then again, just an explanation for people again who haven't seen the manga. They really can't see each other in that ending because of what happens next in the storyline. So here, first spoiler, Tenma gets into an accident. So not really more of an accident, but he gets mugged and then he gets stabbed. And so on her way to Kaguragi, Otto has to rush back to Tenma. And then Kaguragi just stays there. Actually, in the manga, this all happened in Kyoto. But I think it's definitely a lot more, a lot like the feels, given the importance of Ibisu Garden Place to the entire Hana Nochi Hare, Hana Yori Dango fandom. It's just fitting that it happens there. But he is going to wait for her. And she tries to send him a message through someone, but that person flops and gives the message completely differently to someone else. And so, Haruto just simply assumes that Otto didn't want to be with him. And for me, I think what I want to see in the manga is a parallel with Domyoji. I mean, I feel like if it would rain and he was still waiting there, and I don't know, until it gets to the point where Kobayashi comes and gets him. Okay, so before that, I would just want to say that the actor who's playing Kobayashi already passed away. So that one might be a tricky thing, if they were going to have a season 2. I mean, I love his portrayal of Kobayashi. Especially, I think, with Hirano Sho, the way they really played off the whole, butler bochan dynamic was just really good. And I don't know, okay, this is making me sad. But anyways, so that in itself, if it rains, there's definitely a parallelism there with Domyoji and Makino. With Domyoji, he waited for Makino, but Makino showed up. But then for this particular instance, it's kind of nice to see. It's kind of nice to really push it out there in a way that we've often, Hana Nochi Hare definitely broke a lot of arcs that Hana Yori Dango did. Just when you think that they're going to repeat certain narratives here, they sort of twist it and deliver the complete opposite. So I feel like it's only fitting for that to happen if ever season 2 happens eventually. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but anyways, so that results to a new Haruto. So they don't see each other for a long time, given that Otto attended to Tenma for the longest time with the accident and everything. She felt like it was her responsibility to still take care of him because of their relationship, for long. They're not just engaged to one another. They were childhood friends, and they mean they mean a lot to each other. So there's definitely that kind of relationship that it's not easy to dismiss. For season 2, if they're actually going to do it, they have to they really have to adjust certain things because of certain arcs that it covers. Now, moving on to that, so again, going back to the new Haruto. So when we get reintroduced to Haruto after that entire thing, he seems very cold, very distant, and he seemed to have grown a lot more maturely than who he is. He definitely gives off a very mature vibe to him already, which I feel like is very fitting considering that it's been 2-3 years since the first season started. Even if those events should happen consecutively, it's still fitting to I think we will definitely see the matureness in these characters given the actual time frame that had passed in real life. So I feel like Hirano Sho can definitely exude a lot more of that maturity in Haruto's character, something changed in him. given the actual changes that had happened to him as an actor in the industry, and at the same time, like how he would play off the character. Um, and this new Haruto, he has a lot more resolve in a way, and it's definitely very similar to the new Domyoji that gets introduced to us, when Makino goes after him in New York. So that's very interesting to see how it will play off. Um, what's another thing that's interesting that I want to see is that after the entire thing, so after the entire competition, Haruto and Tenma actually develops a friendship that results in this joint relationship between Eitoku and Momonozono. So instead of having a rivalry, they develop this sort of like system where both schools sort of like support each other, which eventually leads to both of them, actually being really good friends. Like Haruto having friends outside of C5 is definitely something. Especially when we know that Domyoji, he's pretty much exclusive with F4, but then it just speaks to Haruto's character, who's often been very sympathetic and empathizing to other characters around him, like with Megurin and all these things. Like, he's always been a character who is a lot more absorbent of embracing relationships with like other people outside of his circle. So that's definitely interesting to see. And I don't know, I would just love to see Taishi and Sho in one screen again. I mean, I would just absolutely love that, please. Field trip of Momonozono and Eitoku, Haruto and Otto get stranded in the ocean for some reason, and it was that he wanted to ignore her so much, but all the feelings sort of like comes rushing back. And one of the lines that I would absolutely, absolutely, absolutely want to see on screen is this struggle when Haruto, realizes that he tells himself that he wants nothing to do with Otto anymore, that he just that she broke his heart, and that he promised himself that he would never let her do that again. And then, at a flick of a switch, because he realizes just how much he still loves her, he just goes and says that, I don't care anymore. Like, she can crush me as many times as she wants. Like, I don't care anymore. I'm just gonna go for it. And that, oh my gosh, like, I would just want to see that play off on screen. I think that's one of the most romantic lines as well. Like, add on to every single romantic thing that Domyoji has said, both in the drama and the manga, and that just ties it up, I guess. For me, I couldn't forget that line. I remember freaking out about that particular line. So, yeah, all of those events have happened. In the manga, we get introduced to Kei Windsor, which is the quote-unquote adopted heir of Kaguragi's father, where he comes back from this entire trip, and then he finds out that he's disowned by his dad. And so we get introduced to this new heir, and it's one of the most ridiculous arcs in the drama, by the way. Like, in my opinion, they can just scratch that off completely. I just hated that because it's more of just, him taunting Haruto to be better. And I don't know, I feel like that arc in itself is just so stupid, they can just scratch it off. But if they are going to push for that, if ever season 2 happens, it would be kind of interesting to see Yokohama Ryusei play Kei Windsor. I mean, considering the friendship that he has with Hirano Sho, it was just kind of interesting for him to have that particular cameo, just to play off that role. Like, I just want to see them bounce off on screen with a different kind of tension, especially since Kei Windsor would also convince Otto for some reason to go to New York or Los Angeles with him. But that would be a pivotal moment between Haruto and Otto's character. So that would be kind of interesting to see. However, I feel like it would definitely, like, it could just last one episode or something if they are going to do it, if a season 2 happens. Because, again, it's just so stupid. There is an arc that I would want to see, that I would want season 2 to revolve in. That would be, the first part would probably be about, settling this entire conflict between the two of them, of, like, just Haruto and Otto, like moving past this entire thing with their relationship. And then the second part of that is when things are actually starting to get better, Haruto's first love comes into the picture. Now, you may think that, now here's the thing, if if Makino is Domyoji's first love, apparently in Hana Nochi Hare, that's not the case. C5 is not just C5. They have another childhood friend into the picture, which is Ame. Now, Ame is this girl who had to move away back when they were younger because she was sick. She needs to get treatment, all of that. And she is basically Haruto's first love, and Haruto is her first love. So there's definitely like a mutual relationship going on there. And there's a lot of unresolved feelings. There's a lot of angst happening there. And she's not a villainous type of character, which is very, very interesting. She's definitely a lot like the dynamic of Tenma, where it's definitely like that. It's definitely a mirror of what Tenma was to Otto and how Ame is to Kaguragi. So all the conflict that Otto was going through in the first season is also what's going to happen with Kaguragi. It's just that the difference is that Haruto is just mainly concerned for Ame in a more friendship type of level, whereas with Otto and Tenma, there's definitely like romance happening there that's a bit both two-way. But then for this one, Haruto is definitely, he loves Otto so much that this other person is really more of just someone coming back from the past and someone that he feels like he has to take care of, but not to the extent that, that he would not prioritize Otto. So I feel like that we need more of that romance narrative between the two of them to really develop this sort of like love between them. Because in season 1, the thing is, again, I mostly blame Nakagawa Taishi's chemistry with basically every single co-star that he plays opposite with. So Otto and Tenma's chemistry for me is a lot stronger, even if I'm all the way Team Haruto. But the thing is, they definitely, like, it's understandable why a lot of people are Team Tenma in season 1, because they definitely stretch out their relationship a lot more, even if, there's this conflict between Haruto and Otto and their feelings. The what we saw more of being a couple is really more for Tenma and Otto. So this, again, season 2 has to revolve around Otto and Haruto and how they're going to navigate through that. One thing that I feel like could be a nice side piece to this is in the manga. So Airi started developing feelings for Tenma, but then it was really more of like a fleeting type of feeling when Kaito confesses to her. So there's another spoiler there. But I feel like in season 1, there was never really a lot of chemistry or a lot of like interactions for Kaito and Airi for us to believe that, Kaito even has remotely showed interest in Airi as a girl. So I feel like if they were going to have like a second couple that we want to like focus on, I would want to see it more between Airi, Tenma, and Sugimaru. I feel like in the drama, they teased Sugimaru a lot-ish with Airi more than Kaito. So that's also one thing that I want to comment on regarding the series. Oh, and before I forget, so there's also one particular thing that happened in the manga that I'm super excited that if they are going to make this possible, I swear it would just be insane. It would be the idea that Haruto finally meets Domyoji in person. Now, there's this entire arc where they also get to meet Makino. Now this one I feel like they have to tweak a lot because in the manga, Makino and Domyoji are still not married. So there's definitely a lot of adjustments that's going to happen if that was the case. And I think for the first season, even with photos of Inoue Mao, like they weren't able to put it there because of some issues with their agency or something like that. So this has a bit of like a margin as to whether or not it could really happen. But if that happens, like if we see the complete F4 in in season 2, I mean, that would absolutely be epic. And if we get to see them plus with Makino, because that absolutely happens in the manga before everything finally wraps up for it. So I don't know, that would just be so cool. But I feel like if the whole issue with Mao's agency, I don't know, don't get resolved or anything like that, I mean, I think they can definitely just make it happen with complete F4, and then Matsujun finally showing his face. I mean, he's shown his face in the first one, but it's really more of, I don't know, just him being Domyoji in the present and not in a flashback. So there's also that. So funny because I feel like this is just me overreaching, but there are a lot of foreshadowing happening in Miman Kisatsu right now. Like, for example, in episode 5, which is the characters, which is centered on Hirano Sho's character, Ichinose Jiro. In the end of the episode, it was revealed that the older brother's note that he wants to name his child is Hana, which is Sugisaki Hana, which reminded me so much of Sugisaki Hana. And then the overarching theme for episode 6 onwards, which is about the shovel killer, the case that they're trying to solve is about the Tenma family, which, I mean, come on. I mean, if that's just a side. I mean, they're just breadcrumbing it at this point for us, for me to hope that there's going to be a season 2. In the end of the manga, so the manga is already over in case you're interested to reading it. The ending of the manga is so, I didn't expect that at all, but let's just leave it at that it's very intimate. And I'm not sure if it's possible for them to play that off on screen. I mean, nothing was really shown, but yeah. But it would just be interesting how they would end it, considering how the manga ended and how faithful they've been so far, the manga. But if they're going to put that, now that one thing that I wouldn't spoil, but I mean, I think you sort of like get where I'm getting at here. I'm just so flustered just thinking about it. With that said, so tell me down in the comments below, would you want the Hana Nochi Hare season 2? Which characters would you cast for Ame and for Kei Windsor? Like, tell me. I would want to see all the fan casts. I would want to read through that. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. And I'll probably be on LSS for Cinderella Girl for the next month or so again because of this. Bye!